Buck Buck is definitely a really good guy. If you guys don't know who Buck Angel is, definitely look him up. Huge trans advocate, amazing man, and just all around good guy. Most of the time, 99% of the time, if you inbox him, he'll inbox you back no matter who you are. So.
Awesome. What is something that you think makes this, this family bond so special? Because, I mean, obviously you have, your biological family now, you have your adoptive family, and then you have your chosen family. Right. What really makes the chosen family bond so special to you?
I think it's the fact that we all have something in common, that we're all, working towards a goal, that we're all part of the LGBT community, period. We know what each other's going through. We know what it's like to be made fun of, to be called something else, to feel like the elephant in the room. So we kind of tend to click to each other, It's like I don't know the exact saying, but how they say broken people love other broken people. You know what I'm saying? We're all technically broken. We're trying to piece ourselves back together, and when you have chosen family that's supportive, it's that much easier to glue your pieces back together rather than trying to do it solo on your own without that extra knowledge that your chosen family could provide for you.
Awesome. Is there any particular advice that he's given you that you think that you want to really share with other trans youth, people who are going through, in earlier stages of their transition, that sort of thing?
Yeah, one thing that really stood out to me that Buck always make sure is planted in my head is don't feed into the negativity that you see within our community. There is a lot of hatred within the trans community, not just outside. That we already have to deal with, that we already know about. It's the trans on trans hate that you want to just leave it alone.
Exactly.
You don't want to become a part of that. You don't want this train of events to happen on social media where it's like you call out one trans guy for saying something, but come to find out 100 other trans guys love that guy, so they're suddenly on his side and you're getting bashed all up and down the street for your opinion. Just leave it alone. Post transition updates. If you have something good going on that day, post that. But if anybody writes a negative comment on it, just leave it. Because they're going to think how they think. Unfortunately, within our community, there are a lot of trans people that hate trans people and feel like they are more privileged or more entitled than the rest of us when we are all either on testosterone or estrogen. We're all seeing therapists, blah, 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 blah. We're all doing the same thing. But something in their brain clicks to where it's like a totem. And they're at the very top of it. And we're in the middle. And people pre-tier on the bottom. And no, we're all trans individuals.
Do you think that a lot of the, self-hatred in the trans community of them hating their self for being trans kind of, because they feel as though they're less than a cis person. Do you think that really influences the way that people display this hatred towards other trans people, or do you think it's something else?
I definitely believe that's a factor. Because, a lot of trans guys... Okay, I don't want to say a lot of trans guys. From what I see, I'll put it like that, so it's my opinion, it's not. From what I see, a lot of trans guys wish they were cis. And that's okay. I wish I would have been, born in the right body too. It's something that we're all going to go through. Some don't get over that notion though, and begin hating themselves because they don't have the bottom half, because their top half isn't flat, and then they go to the beach or to the mall and see all these guys and, they're able to take their shirts off and, they have a package and things like that, and it gets frustrating. I can totally see how someone could begin to self-hate. I would never do it personally myself, but I do feel like it has a huge factor to do with why a lot of trans men hate on other trans men, or like say ones that haven't seen as many changes talking about others that have had a lot of changes because they're frustrated. Patience is the hardest thing to have with this transition. Trying to get a buzz going. And a couple months ago, January to be exact, me and a buddy went and had grabbed a bag of this said synthetic, and we had smoked it, and I suddenly started to, excuse me, I suddenly started to not feel well, so I had called into work that night. Woke up the next day and went out into the living room and fell into a seizure. I was then put into a 3-day induced coma. Woke up in the hospital, like, what the hell happened? They told me that my kidneys were failing, my heart was failing, all this other things, and I was puking, and everything was wrong. And yeah, it was a horrible experience, and it all stemmed off the synthetics and stress. What I'm doing now is fighting very, very hard for the legalization of medical cannabis. It has so many positive factors. Like, I got out of the hospital and I wasn't able to eat, I wasn't able to sleep. I had very, really bad PTSD because I didn't know what happened the whole time. So it kept me playing in my head. My ADHD was acting up, I was anxious, all these other things. And my friend was able to get a hold of some medicinal marijuana and gave me some and was like, here man, try this, see if it'll help you eat, things like that. I got my appetite back, I was able to sleep, my mind wasn't racing anymore, I was able to relax for the first time since getting out of the hospital. So I've been using medical cannabis ever since, ever since I got out of the hospital. If I feel, an anxiety attack coming on, if I can't sleep, things like that, I'm definitely all for it because it can really help people. And like I've read, it can completely take away painkillers. And there's several reasons. One of the biggest reasons is there's barely any side effects. A lot of people when they're on these pain medications, they're like, I'm dizzy, I'm nauseous, I'm sleepy, I didn't eat, so now I feel like I'm gonna throw up. The painkillers are so hard on your body. And you get prescribed several different medications. So you're on a cocktail of narcotics. You can't work because you're passed out half the time. Weed could take that away, you could still work on medical marijuana, depending on the strain, I should say. Some of it gets pretty potent. You can work, you can live. People that are antisocial become social. All these people that are afraid of people suddenly are like, oh my god, what a beautiful world. You don't hear of people killing people while high on weed, but you hear it with the synthetics, with the ecstasies, with the meth, the heroin, all that stuff. It's natural. It grows in the ground. There's just so many reasons why it's better than what medical doctors are prescribing to people right now. And I wish that all of the U.S. would see, what Colorado saw and what Washington saw and California and how much money they're making in revenue for schools and stuff now. There's so many positives to this. There's so many positives. You can make freaking gasoline out of hemp oil. Come on, man. Personally, I'm voting for Bernie. I'm feeling the burn. He has been very consistent with his campaigning. He has never changed what he says. He's not like Hillary, for example, who likes to switch the game up to please people. Sorry for anybody that's voting for Hillary. My personal opinion, no bashing. But yeah, I just respect that man. I respect the heck out of that man. He's really for everybody and for seeing everybody get ahead. There's no class to him that's higher than the other. And that's why he's at the top of my list. I would like to see them touch more on LGBT issues. I know they have. I've heard Hillary personally talk about it and how she wants to change the game up and whatever, but I feel like basically, I feel like the T is silent right now for the politicians. And especially with these bills going on, they don't really want to touch on it, and it sucks because we are just as much a people as the rest of the LGBT, and we deserve to be heard too. And I really wish that there were like some trans politicians so that we had like somebody in House, in Senate, up there, fighting for us and like being that cool person, male or female, whoever it would have been. But I know that in time, our like our visibility will become more known. Like we already have the day, Trans Day of Visibility. We're making strides, and eventually we'll make it into the White House and into Congress, and we will be represented appropriately. Almost put those two words together. But I mean, until that day, like I said, I'm totally Team Bernie. I'm going to vote for him. Everybody that is tuned in, make sure you vote. Voting matters. As much, whatever you've been told, voting matters. Whether it's you just vote for president. You could just go there and just vote for president. You can put anybody's name on the ballot. You know what I'm saying? Like, just go vote. Go be a number out there. Okay? Go out and force. If you want to see a change, you got to be the change you want to see. So, president is a big freaking deal, people. Like, that's like who's running the country. It's not like, oh, school board member 123775 is up for election. No, that stuff you don't have to go vote for. You're not in school. It doesn't matter. Whatever. But when it comes to like presidents and like governors of your state and things like that, don't you want to have a say, whether the person that you voted for wins or not, to know that you raised your voice makes all the difference in the world.
I think that's what we are. I mean, I think trans people are doing this already, right? Because to be a trans person that's surviving, you're really fighting every day to against this kind of lack of acceptance and all the little clues you get. All day you get little clues if you're out in public that there's something wrong with you, and it is a struggle and a battle to combat that. I think with the suicide rate as high as it is in the trans community, I think it kind of behooves trans people to be more proactive about taking care of themselves, to understand that this is something that they're at high risk for, and to understand what are the things that would, trigger suicidal ideation, what are their triggers that are going to make things more difficult for them, and try to manage that so that like you would a chronic illness, try to manage your exposure to certain things. An example I like to give of this is I come from a big Mormon family, and when I first transitioned, everybody was giving me this advice: well, you can't cut off your ties with your family. Family's most important. Blah blah blah. And you know what? I did cut off ties with my family, and I am much happier since I did, because they were a constant source of misgendering and invalidation, which is very triggering if you're feeling suicidal. And so I think it's important that trans people give themselves permission to say, look, this person is, every time I talk to this person, I feel bad afterwards, so I'm just not going to talk to them anymore. I mean, I think we really have to do those sorts of things if we want to. I think the community can be, well, I mean, we know that there's actually science showing that connection to community is one of the protective factors for suicide. There's a trans suicide researcher. His name is Dr. Rai Testa. Mm-hmm. He's in Tennessee, and he did a study, and it showed that the things that protect trans people against suicide are community connectedness and pride and identity. And so those are really the two things you can do for yourself. He also showed that invalidation of identity is one of the strongest triggers for suicidal ideation. So if you have people in your life that don't respect your identity, you should really limit your contact with them when you're not feeling good. Like, it's not good for you. If you struggle with ideation and you're trying to get through, limiting your contact with people that invalidate your identity is a way to help yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think that also, knowing that gives you an opportunity to say to your family, like, do you know that this is the number one leading factor that leads to suicide for trans people. This is what you're doing to me right now. I think that being informed about that gives you some power to engage with people, and not everybody's going to respect it, but I think a lot of people, if they understand how bad it is, some people will really make more of an effort. So
yeah, and I mean, even if they don't, it's still you have that power to kind of start that conversation and kind of direct that conversation in a certain manner. And even if they don't really understand, because a lot of times, there are some families who just absolutely refuse to understand, that still gives you that moment of power whenever you're addressing this subject. Like, for instance, how you had to cut your family off because they wouldn't, adhere to the pronouns and they wouldn't stop misgendering you and stuff like that. I had that same sort of issue, except, I cut my family off too, but my family was supporting these bathroom bills here in Charlotte and stuff.
Oh, God.
And,
I'm sorry.
yeah, my mother was the worst about that. But, I mean, it's awesome that, I guess you're really giving people that hope. You're showing people that you can have this community, you can have this support, you can talk about these issues, and these issues don't have to be silent anymore. Because for a staggering number, like 41%, suicide is really silent whenever it comes to the community. Well,
right.
Any community.
I think it's something that we need to talk about. I think that when we hide that part of ourselves, we're really not helping ourselves or our community.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any way to solve it. I don't think that anybody else is going to solve this for us. I think all the answers to the problems that trans people have are going to come from the trans community. That's been the case in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that'll be the case in the future. So I think it's really just important that we take care of each other, and that we view this as our job and not somebody else's job. I know that as a community we don't have much. We struggle to find jobs. We struggle for acceptance. We struggle with our families. And, if there's one thing that I can say, I think it's really important that we don't do more damage to each other as part of the community, that those of us in the community, if you don't get along with somebody, don't talk to them, but don't, I don't know, there's a tendency in the community to shun people who have unpopular ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody can be trans, and of course there are going to be trans conservatives, and there are going to be trans liberals, and there are going to be trans people who have ridiculous, offensive opinions, but they're still part of us, whether we like it or not. So, if you don't get along with those people, that's fine. You don't have to interact with them. But I see these kind of campaigns on social media to shun this person or that person. You're really putting that person at risk for suicide. And if you're the kind of person who doesn't think that that's a problem, then you're not a good person. You're a bad person if you're not concerned about the suicide of somebody else, even if you don't agree with them. So that's something I think is important, that we moderate our speech to each other, that we realize that all of us are struggling with, everybody's got the same problems you do and maybe more problems.
What she said was, she says, now I'm not at this place now, but where I was years ago, before I was exposed and before I started to learn and I went to college and learned things. She says, as a woman, we are raised to fear men. We are raised to keep our skirts down, not to do certain things. You know how patriarchy is, how, you have to look a certain way and live a certain way to protect yourself as a woman, as a little girl, as a woman, as a teenage girl, because it's the thing that men are predatory and they will try to take advantage of you, blah, 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 blah. And she said, so being that we associate you with being a man, even though you're dressed like a woman and you say that you're a woman, we know you have a penis. Anything with a penis is it could be a possible danger. That's how I was raised. So now I know I can come around you because I've been educated. But years ago, if you came in the bathroom and I knew you were trans, there would be a fear there that was embedded in me because you are a man in the girl's bathroom. Mm-hmm. I had never, until she spoke the words, and she said other things, but until she spoke the words, I know that that's how women are conditioned. because we are conditioned to assume that men are predatory. We know that that's an element. When you think of a rapist, you don't think about a woman rapist.
Exactly.
You think about a man rapist. When you think about a molester, you think about a man molester. If you say, "Oh, the kids got molested," you're gonna think of a man. That's just automatically. It's just how the society has conditioned us to believe. So being empathetic and understanding her point of view and seeing her being dishonest, it let me know that sometimes it's really just lack of education, lack of exposure, lack of knowing the truth about us and our community. Because to some people, we are so far out of their circle of people that they know of that, they don't know about us. And I think that we're coming in a time where people their fears are being exposed. Their fears are being exposed, and it's bubbling up. It's kind of like the '60s with the civil rights movement with the black people. It's bubbling up. We're seeing what people are seeing. All of this stuff going on TV, exposed to trans stuff. And now they have to sit back and make an opinion about it and learn at the same time of, being exposed to it where they didn't have to do before. So, of course, people's ignorance and fears are going to be exposed more often than it was back then. And so I empathize with her because I understood that that's a change we have to be sensitive about because everybody is, at different level of education when it comes to us.
How do you feel about the violence with the trans community, the violence from cisgender men, women, just people in general?
Most of the violence with us is from men, usually, who love us. Like, it's usually men who we're dating. That's usually a lot of a client. If you're in the sex work, your lover, somebody you're dating, messing around with on the down low, get exposed, and now they have to defend their manhood. I think it's a reflection of the fragility of masculinity. Men are traumatized with this box that they have to be in, and everything, masculinity is so revolved around this specific type of man, this butch, you gotta be like this, all these criteria of what a man is. And I think that they're traumatized by it too, and they're negatively affected by, by this box of masculinity that they have to fit, and anything that can rock that can lead them to violence. And unfortunately, how society devalues our lives, it makes it easier for them to make the decision to just take us out. And that's scary and sad and true, but I think it makes the decision for them to say, okay, like if you're hurting a woman, not that women don't get hurt at all, okay, but at least if there is a social consciousness that hurting women is wrong, and it might give them, some of them, some type of pause. But with us, with everybody devaluing our lives, thinking that we should die, thinking that we should not be on earth, thinking that we are the cause of the decline of humanity because we're not making babies, or whatever, all the crazy things that people say, because they devalue our lives. It's easy for somebody who is in a position to decide on to hurt us or not, to make the decision. Oh, I'll just hurt her because nobody will care about her. I'll just kill her and throw her in a gutter. We found trans women in Florida, in Cleveland, in different places around the country, just laid dead in a fucking field. Somebody shot them and killed them. We've experienced these things. We've experienced emergency medical teams leaving trans women on the ground to die. Just because they're trans women. So these instances because the society has made our lives so invaluable, violence towards us is easy. And that's scary, but definitely something we have to change. and I'm trying to play devil's advocate. It's still wrong. Still, there's no excuse for it. But I'm trying to that's just my way of thinking of, like, Islan Nettles, the guy who just got some, what, 12 years? Was it 12 years?
I think it was.
I think it was like 12 years. And his excuse was, and he thought it was acceptable and would be acceptable to say that, oh, I was tricked by a trans woman a week before this, and I didn't want to be tricked again. And that was his excuse from attacking and killing this trans woman who was not tricking you, who actually told you up front.
Mm-hmm.
So this was your excuse to kill her, and you thought it would be okay to say this as an excuse. That's the place that we are at, where they're so blind and so crazy against us and think that everybody else is, that they can use these crazy excuses to take our lives. And I think that that's where we are. I think it definitely has to change. It's inappropriate. And not to victim blame, but I think we have to take more actions with ourselves to protect ourselves. Not that it's going to be 100% avoidable, but I think we have to make better decisions for our lives when we can. Mm-hmm. Sometimes our choices are all bad. But and we don't have a lot of options that are great options to take from. But when we can make better choices, we need to definitely make better choices when it comes to protecting ourselves and keeping ourselves safe. So that's what I think about that. I think that it's definitely crazy and unfair to us, and it's definitely something that society, not just us, has to work on.
March 17th, it was St. Patty's Day, the worst day in Boston, mind you. All right, I'm a drag king, so that night I was a leprechaun. I was dressed up as a leprechaun, shaved, spray painted my beard orange. So can you imagine what I look like? So I did my regular routine that I've been doing for years. Got into a cab with a girl. For the first time in 3 years of being with an actual person who is a woman, identified, a cisgender woman who's never been in the community. So she didn't understand, she'd never seen the hate before. Exactly. So she was very like, if somebody said something about her boyfriend, like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this kind of attitude. Just trying to give you a little picture of why, what happened. So that night I did a performance, and we left. We took a cab. She was a little overboard, and I knew that I had to watch her. So we were on our way home, and the cab driver, I just noticed, because I was so focused on the girl I was with, because she was seizuring in the back. So I was focused on that. I wasn't focusing on him driving us. But he knew where we were going, and it was $24.90 more than it would normally be. So I stopped him when it happened. And I said, wherever we are, stop. We'll walk from here. Because it was $50-something, and it's normally no more than $31 in a cab. Mm-hmm. Now, if I do an Uber or a Lyft, it's like $14. But a cab, I'm paying $30. A tip, good $10. It's a cab driver, Mm-hmm. It's your safety. They're taking care of you. That's how I look at it. I grew up with a cab company growing up with my family renting out to them, so I understand the respect that they deserve. So I'm like, what's going on here? We're gonna pay. I gave them my credit card. Now I'm okay with admitting anything about what's up with me. Everything is legally changed, but I carry change of name forms because where I am and safety reasons, I'm not ready yet to change. That's a personal thing. Until we are forced, I think if we have the choice, we would do the same thing. Anybody would do the same thing if they have the choice. So my credit cards and my ID and my anything says my biological name, which is Christina. So I gave him my credit card, not thinking, because I'm not used to having to give them both. When they're like, oh, I'll give you, so it's like, okay, I'll give it to you. I'm not used to giving them two, I'm used to giving them one. Normally, when I go somewhere where they're looking at me, I'll take my hat off, I'll take my glasses off, and I'll hand it to them because I've had to change my ID 7 times in 4 years to match the way I look. So that, because it said my biological information, that they understood it was me. So I already knew what I had to work with. I already knew what I was getting myself into. I already knew I was prepared. I was already ready for if somebody negatively backlashed at me, I already knew what to do. And he did. He grabbed my card, said my biological name on it, and right away he said, this is stolen. I said, wait, hold on. Well, firsthand, he said to my girlfriend, who I said, pay the guy, he goes, no, she not pay. You're the husband. You pay. So you knew he was sexist right away. We talked most of the time, so I was pretty comfortable with him. He had steri strips on his nose already. He was talking about how his son-in-law and him got into a fight, and he didn't know how his daughter could marry someone like that. We were getting close. It was like one of those relationships in a cab. So I felt comfortable enough to say to him, here's my ID, here's my credit. So when he saw it, and you saw the picture, it matches. It looks kind of like. I mean, it looks like me. It wasn't 2 years ago, but it looks like me. When that happened, he closed the latch of the door that you can put your hand through, and he goes, "What the f are you? What the f is this? What the f is going on?" And he started talking really gross. Like, what did I let in my cab? He started yelling at my girlfriend, like, who the fuck are you with? Excuse language. What's going on? And she started freaking out. And I was, saying, like, hold on. So I'm controlling 2 people now. Like, stop acting out. This is going to get us in trouble. I need to explain to you what's going on so I don't get in trouble. And he didn't care. So he got out of the car. She was still in the car freaking out. I got out of the car. The doors are in between us. And I started saying, like, please, sir, like, we'll go down the street. We can go to the ATM. I'll get you whatever you need. Like, please trust me. Believe me. Like, there's nothing wrong. And he just kept saying to me in my face, like, what are you? What is this? I didn't come to this country to be around this. And I just was like, I just knew at that point that I was in danger. Because he started saying what he was saying. So I had to start screaming. So when he finally came to like close to me, I was like, please, sir. And he grabbed me like this with his hand completely wrapped. His hand is huge. My hands are tiny, by the way. But his hand went like this to me, but like all the way. And I started screaming, I give up my right. Give up my right, touch me all you want, but at the same time, it was letting the people around us, the residents, hear it and see it too. His hand went like from this, so his hand was like this, no, mostly like that, and then went like this, and slowly scratched as I pulled away. So it caused hand mark, and then tracked nail mark, but then gouging nail marks. And my lawyer was the one who, I didn't see myself in a mirror yet. She saw me and made me strip down naked and take pictures. I had a black eye I didn't even know I had. I didn't even know I had one. I had a whole black eye. I had handprints, and then I had road rash from my knees down. Because when I dropped to the ground and told him that he could hit me, he decided to like drag me as much as he could. So I had road rash. So when I got arrested, it was where I lived. And the people who arrested me, I went to school with, that used to pick on me, like bash skateboards over my head, call me a dyke, all this junk. These are the guys who arrested me. I have 3 pop discs in my neck, so I can move and everything, but I can never have my hands look normal. And my feet, I can't feel them in the morning. They start laughing at me going, "You're a trophy." We don't care.
From studios underwritten in part by Sputnik Radio, this is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And very pleased to be Jessica in Matthews, North Carolina. Hey, Jessica, what's on your mind today?
Hey, my name is Jessica Manning. I'm actually a transgender woman from Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm living in Matthews currently, right on the border. I was actually calling to discuss the lawsuits going on currently between the Department of Justice and the state of North Carolina, especially with Pat McCrory. I would just want to say, if you support Bernie, the Occupy Wall Street, the Black Lives Matter, you should really be fighting this bill and reaching out to support the LGBT community, because McCrory's really just using this as a smokescreen to really, I guess, incite his campaign supporters for his reelection and to cap the minimum wage.
Yeah, part of it was the preemption preventing Charlotte, the town where you live, Jessica, from providing protections to people like yourself. And part of it was preventing Charlotte from raising their minimum wage or offering worker protections that go beyond those kind of things. And he's using this whole bathroom thing where it's a non-issue. It's like voter fraud. It's a non-issue. But the Republicans have succeeded in passing voter suppression laws now in 33 states over a non-issue, and now we've got 3 states that are doing this kind of thing, and it's crazy. It's wrong. It's morally wrong. It is the values of this country. It's inconsistent with the values of this country, and I really hope that the president just brings down the wrath of God on North Carolina. He has the ability to cut off their highway funds. And he has the ability to cut off all the funding for the state university there, and is threatening to do so. And I wish he would move along a little faster. I think this is just outrageous.
Yeah, they actually declined to cut all the funding so far, which is really ridiculous, especially when McCrory is calling to change the actual civil rights laws.
Right.
The civil rights laws. So, that is completely ridiculous. But the fact that the media is just scandalizing this to be all about the bathroom issues when, trans people have been using the bathrooms forever, obviously.
Sure.
It is just ridiculous because they're ignoring the major issues like the minimum wage or the fact that 15% of trans people, 25 or 23% of multiracial trans people, 35% of Black trans people, and 28% of Latino trans people makes less than $10,000 annually. And the non-discrimination ordinance that was passed in Charlotte, that this whole House bill was, signed to combat, there were no actual job protections for trans people in there whatsoever. That was all about customers and vendors and suppliers and stuff.
Right.
But there was no actual job protections. 26% of trans people are fired just for being trans.
Wow.
And the weird thing is they're making this all about protecting the children and protecting women from sexual predators. But there was recently, I think today, Reverend Kenneth Worley was arrested for assaulting women. Then there's that Dennis, it was a Hastert who was, a lazy boy in the locker room and everything.
Oh, you're more likely to be solicited in a men's room or a women's room, presumably for that matter. I think by a Republican politician than by a trans person. In fact, I don't have any recollection of any trans person ever being arrested. You would think if it had ever happened, it would be high profile because the Republicans would be pumping it like crazy. Everybody, it would be like Willie Horton. Everybody would know that person's name. But if we need to be worried about anybody in our bathrooms, it's Republican politicians.
Exactly. And the fact that they're doing this to schools are just ridiculous. Because, 44% of LGBT students have been physically attacked while in schools.
Yeah.
So, they're just putting students in more harm. And it's really caused like a skyrocket in the calls to the Trans Lifeline, the suicide prevention line for trans people.
Yep.
They've had over 200 calls every single day. Yeah. And he's not even touching the subject of, the LGBT homelessness in North Carolina, because I know especially in Charlotte, the LGBT homelessness and especially the trans homelessness has really skyrocketed. The average age that a trans kid is kicked out is 13, and 1 in 5 trans people, have to experience homelessness at some point.
Wow.
20 to 40% of homeless youth are actually LGBT, and that's out of 1.6 million. So that's around, 320 to 400,000 trans homeless children, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
What about the violence?
That's a tough one. I have a trans nephew, and thank God my brother and his wife are super, super supportive of him. But, it's the initial reactions. But increasingly, people are discovering that trans people are all around us. They're in our families. They're in our communities. People like yourself, Jessica, and we're all here together. We're all humans in this thing, and to pick basically what Pat McCrory is doing is he's saying, okay, the picking on black people, that worked 30, 40 years ago, but, there's enough of them and they've got enough political power now that, we really can't pick on the black people. And picking on gay people, that used to work, but, they've got some. So let's pick on the trans people because, it's like going for it is the most cowardly thing I can imagine. Go for the least of the least, to paraphrase Jesus. And instead of supporting them, trashing them, it's obscene. It is so wrong. Jessica, thank you for calling. Thank you for having all that information at the tip of your fingers verbally.
No problem. Make sure to check out my trans activism blog, the TSpot Daily. It's on Facebook.com/the TSpotUS.
The fight over.
The state of North Carolina suing the federal government. The federal government says we're going to sue you back. Department of Justice does just that and says that this HB2, the bathroom bill as they're calling it, is discriminatory. It's bigoted. And our Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, who's an African-American woman and who's from the state of North Carolina, likens it to Jim Crow laws. What do you say? 888-6-LESLIE, 888-653-7543. Let's get to the calls, and we started out with Jessica in Charlotte, North Carolina, on line 1, listening to Progressive Voices. Hi, Jessica. How you doing? Thank you for joining us. You're in the state of North Carolina. Before you give us your opinion, is this a topic of conversation every day, and do you feel the state, at least where you are in Charlotte, is very divided over this?
It's definitely a conversation that is going on every day right now, and Charlotte is really divided over this. I was actually there during the non-discrimination ordinance vote, whenever, the thing that actually started all of this, and during that vote, there was so much hate and bigotry just everywhere as far as the people that were up there kind of going against or going for supporting the non-discrimination ordinance to not be passed. They were pushing for it to not go through with the city council, and they lost, but they were crazy. There was even one guy who declared himself a king and said that because we can declare our genders legally and must be treated as so, then he is going to declare himself a king legally, and we must treat him as so. He had on like a crown and a Renaissance outfit and everything. So the people are really ridiculous as far as this goes. The division is very harsh.
We're going to be taking a break in a minute, but I want you to be thinking about this. Is this split politically, and how does that play religiously? Because there's a lot of religious folks in North Carolina, even Democrats, who are religious. And, we've seen this happen before. People are like, well, I'm Democrat, so I have a hard time with gay marriage, as an example. We'll be back with our caller and with you right after this. Hey there, I'm Leslie Marshall. Welcome back. We are talking with Jessica in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're talking about something going on in that state. There's a lawsuit in that state toward the federal government and one back from the federal government to the state of North Carolina. There's a governor there up for re-election, a Republican, who doesn't, care and wants HB2. Our Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, an African-American woman from North Carolina, and I say that because I think an African-American woman can speak to Jim Crow laws much better than a white chick can. And she said that's what this likens to. We're talking with Jessica in Charlotte, North Carolina on line 1, listening to Progressive Voices, and Jessica said they're very divided there in Charlotte, where she lives in North Carolina, over this. It's a topic of conversation every day. Jessica, when we add the element of religion, is that what's going on here, or is it more political?
I don't really think it's more religion. I think it's more political. I think that McCoy is really using this as like a wedge issue for his November election to kind of whip up his voters. I mean, it's a very cynical manipulation of his own supporters, and I mean, it's using their fear and ignorance against them. And I mean, yeah, there are some people who are religious and use that as their reasoning, but at the same time, it's only the ignorant ones. It's only the people who, just are boastfully ignorant. And he's doing that right now. He's whipping him up, but at the same time, he kind of has to. I mean, he has no charisma. He's got nothing to really make him win the vote. But I mean, as far as he gets into office, he doesn't really do anything. He has all this talk, but whenever he's in office, he doesn't really do anything. I mean, he's like the Hillary Clinton of North Carolina.
All right. Thank you, Jessica. Anything else before we let you go there in Charlotte, North Carolina?
Just to let you know, I have been on a bunch of different shows that are going nationally right now, between NPR and, just a bunch of different independent shows and national shows. But make sure to check me out on Facebook for facebook.com/the TSpot US. It's my social activism blog for trans issues. Not only that, but make sure to keep your eye out for a nonprofit that we're, starting up to provide housing to homeless trans and at-risk trans youth, and really, help them get scholarships for school and stuff.
Ring of Fire, Saturdays at 4 on 880 The Revolution, Asheville's Progressive.
How are things going for you there?
They're going pretty good right now. Of course, since the Justice Department is now filing that lawsuit, unfortunately, that is going to take a while. Mm-hmm. And it's just really ridiculous that this whole issue is being scandalized to be a bathroom issue when really this whole thing was nothing more than a wedge issue to get Pat McCrory another election.
Absolutely.
Totally agree.
Mm-hmm,
They're playing. This is the exact same kind of social issue, wedge issue, divisive game playing that they have been playing for 35 years.
Exactly. And
you're now the target, though, unfortunately. First it was abortions, gays, now you.
Exactly. And I mean, just because they're doing this wedge issue, they're scandalizing it to be all about the bathrooms, when all that's really doing is just, throwing a smokescreen over the real issues, like, the minimum wage is in the bill, which is completely ridiculous. The fact that the Charlotte LGBT homeless and for the homeless youth has really just exploded lately between Charlotte and the rest of North Carolina. The fact that there are no legal protections for trans or LGBT people in the workplace. The fact that 26% of people get fired just for being trans, and 35% of black trans people make under $10,000 a year.
I'm not surprised, sadly.
I mean, it is ridiculous, and the rate of violence against trans people, especially trans people of color,
off the charts, right?
Off the charts. And since they've had this bill, the Trans Lifeline, the suicide prevention hotline that has been dedicated to trans people, has exploded.
Jessica, can you hang on with me for 1 second? Jessica, I'll take a quick break. Hang on with me. We'll come right back. I want to hear some more of this, and we got more to do where justice is served. Hey, Jessica, thank you so much for holding over with me in North Carolina. As a trans person, I gather that this law that the legislature passed, the governor signed, has to some degree at least, and please, I want to be wrong, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but my fear is that it creates an atmosphere that tells people that are hostile to transgender people it's okay to attack them, pick on them, yell at them, be abusive, physically harm them, because the state of North Carolina is declaring official hostility to transgender people. I mean, is that happening? I'm afraid it is. Please tell me I'm wrong.
It is. It's a green light to discrimination. And not only that, one of the local school counties here in Charlotte, Rowan County School District has actually authorized for the students to bring pepper spray to school with them in case there are any trans people in the bathroom that are, I guess, bothering them just by being in the bathroom and existing. And then on top of that, I mean, it's agreeing to any business that wants to discriminate against us. I mean, the non-discrimination ordinance that was passed by Charlotte in the first place that started this whole thing, I mean, there were no, legal job protections in that bill. All that bill really was for is just so that we could go into a place of business that we spend our money at and not be denied service, and that we would be able to, or that we have to be able to use the bathroom that correlates with our gender identity. That's all that did. And because of that, it started this whole thing. And now it is completely greenlighting discrimination.
And many people believe that many people believe wrongly, the Republicans believe that there's some kind of license or immunity to commit rape in bathrooms. I don't understand the hysteria on the Republican side. But Jessica, I'm very, very sorry that they have used you as a political cudgel to bang their way to electoral victory. I will echo what the Attorney General said. I see you. I know you are there, and I will do everything that I can to protect you, because you are under attack, and you are under attack falsely and for doing nothing wrong. Jessica, thank you for calling. And the state of North Carolina is learning a very valuable lesson now, and it'll take more time. That lesson is America has changed now. And maybe you guys should get with the program